Welcome into 3-Point Lead, a Loeb's Leads podcast. I appreciate you guys hopping on for the inaugural episode. We have a great episode today, a great interview with Ian Inangelo, the most iconic Boston Celtics creator there is on the internet, the three-headed GOAT. We talked a little bit about Game 3, Game 4, as well as the Celtics' legacy, both players and coaching staff, if they were to sweep the Dallas Mavericks tonight, Friday, June 14th. I also give you my temper tantrum of the day, talking a little bit about Brandon Aiyuk, what that means for his contract situation, where he's going to wind up, and something I think all of us are missing in this equation as it relates to the other wide receivers on the San Francisco 49ers. But before we get into any of that, I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Better Picks, my favorite way to enjoy fantasy sports, where you can pick more or less on your favorite player's stats to win up to 1,000 times your entry. Right now, Better is offering a first deposit match up to $250 if you go to my socials and join with code LEADS. That's LEADS, LEADS, all caps, on Better Picks. Without further ado, let's get into it. We now welcome in Ian Inangelo, the most legendary Boston Celtics creator on any social media application you can find, coming on the heels of a crazy Game 3 win. Ian, we appreciate you joining us. Thank you again.
Of course, man. I'm thank you for having me on.
Yeah, glad to have you on. Before we talk a little bit about Game 3 and Game 4, we want to know a little bit about your journey as a creator, because I know we've been interacting for a couple of years and have talked to each other about each other's content for a while, but not everybody may know you on this side. So why don't you take it away with a couple minutes of what you've done, what you do now, and where the creation journey has taken you.
Yeah, man, of course. So I started making TikToks in like 2019. I didn't really have any real direction. I just kind of made random videos from time to time. And then during the 2020 bubble, I made my first 3 to go video that most people know me for.
Yeah.
And it kind of just went from there. I kept making them for the rest of the bubble playoffs during the Celtics run, and they just kept doing good numbers. So I thought, hey, why not start covering the Celtics? So ever since then, I've been covering the Celtics every season, making videos after every game, just trying to make the best Celtics basketball, Boston sports content I can.
Yeah, absolutely. And you certainly make great content. You said the three-headed goat video, that is your signature. That's definitely how I noticed you for the first time. But you also said it's Boston sports. We'll talk a little bit about the Patriots at the very end, but Boston sports in a world now where it's been probably close to a decade of not anguish, because very, very fortunate as Boston sports fans to be in the position that we're in, consistently competing. But for the Celtics, the past couple of years, a long road of heartbreak, losing in the finals, almost having the greatest comeback in NBA history in a series, and then now one win away from the 18th championship in Boston Celtics history. For those playing at home, that is the most in the NBA. But coming off of Game 3, a crazy end, watching the Celtics go on a 20-5 run, then watching the Mavericks just 4 or 5 minutes later go on a 22-2 run.
Yeah.
What a wild end to that game.
Yeah, I think the problem was I think they got too hyped after Xavier Tillman hit that corner three. I think everyone thought, like, yeah, this game's over now. Tillman is hitting threes. It's over. But yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it was stressful. I was stressing a little bit, but the difference between the Celtics team and the Celtics teams in the past is that they just don't completely melt down in the face of pressure anymore. Like, yeah, the Mavericks made it a 2-point game at one point, but this Celtics team is completely different. This team can hold a lead, even if it gets close. They will not, they will be able to keep their foot on the gas and be able to pull out the win, no matter what it feels like.
Yeah, no matter what is the best way to put it, because this has been a team, like you said, past few seasons, they do fold in the face of pressure. And granted, there's been plenty of times where they rise to it, and I think this season we've seen it more and more. That's the experience factor, right? Everybody talks about experience like it's this overarching theme, and you don't know what it really means until you see it. This is what experience does for a team, right?
Oh, yeah, and, people are talking about how this Celtics team isn't battle-tested enough and yada, yada, this and that. Like, I never understood that point of view. Have you not seen what the Celtics have gone through the last few years? I mean, 2022 run in general, they went through the Brooklyn Nets with KD, Kyrie. They went through the Bucks with Giannis, and then they went through the Miami Heat in a 7-game series. The Bucks and the Heat were 7-game series to make the finals against the Golden State Warriors, and yeah, they lost, but it was a 6-game series. next season, 2023 wasn't, as dominant of a run. You still went to 6 games with Atlanta. You went to 7 games with Philly where you didn't really need to, and Tatum had the 51 points in game 7. And then you went 7 games with Miami where if Tatum doesn't hurt his ankle in game 7, you might make an 0-3 comeback, the first in NBA history. So if people are saying that this Celtics team isn't battle tested enough and that they haven't been able to, rise to the occasion just because they played the Heat without Jimmy Butler, the Cavs with half of Donovan Mitchell, and the Pacers with half of Tyrese Halliburton, then I don't really know what to tell you. You obviously haven't been watching the Celtics play basketball the last few years.
Yeah, I think everybody says that and just looks at this team this year because, you look at the playoff run they've had and it's paled in comparison to the past 2 years for sure. But you look at what the majority of the heart of this team has been through: Tatum, Brown, Derek White, Al Horford. You lose 6 games to a really good Golden State Warriors team after fighting even to get there. Those 2 series before were crazy. 2 7-game series back-to-back against really good teams, really good superstars too. I think you just overlook what's been done in the past. And that's easy to do, right? It's a different season every single year. This Celtics team is different from the ones in the past. But like you said, if you've been watching Celtics basketball for the past couple of years, it's pretty clear to see that they are battle tested. They've been through a lot. And, you don't avoid losing after giving up a 22-2 run if you don't have that experience, if you can't, bounce back from a big run by the other team. People say basketball is a game of runs. Well, sometimes you need to bounce back from a run too. And I think that's what the Celtics have shown they can do, which has been crazy. But we'll talk a little bit about game 4. Before we do, though, we got to talk about the Luka Doncic foul stuff. I know we talked about it very briefly before he came on here. He could have had 7 fouls for anybody watching. He could have had 7. It was 4, maybe 3-4 minute stretch where he picked up the 5th and the 6th, where there was one in between. The 5th and the 6th were stupid fouls. How crazy is that?
See, okay, so obviously everyone's going to talk about the fact that, Luka Doncic is, arguably is the best player in this series. I'm not going to deny the fact. And he got fouled out. And people are just going to see that, and they're going to be like, well, what the hell is the NBA thinking? It's the NBA Finals and blah, blah, blah. These refs were not calling anything. And you still managed to foul out. You have to be that bad of a defender and that bad, in the game in general to foul out in a game where the refs were not calling anything the entire night. And honestly, if Luka wasn't, if he wasn't a cone on defense, then maybe he wouldn't have to. I remember he had 1 take foul. He missed a layup. Derek White got the rebound and he fouled Derek White for no reason at all. He had a take foul against Peyton Pritchard, which made absolutely no sense. And then I can't remember how he picked up his 5th foul, but it was probably something similar to that. And then he almost fouled out the play before when he almost took out Jaylen Brown as they were going for a loose ball, and they didn't call that. And then obviously the 6th foul, we've all seen it. I don't really know what he's thinking going for a charge in that situation when A, you have 5 fouls, and B, you haven't been playing defense the entire night. So, I don't know. I think people are going to overreact about it, but I think he deserved it just with the way that he was playing.
I think so, too. I think definitely deserved it. I also do think a little bit of credit has to go to Jaylen Brown because that 5th foul was, I think, on the low block. Brown blew by him, and he kind of hooked him a little bit. And
yeah.
They called that, and, it's a credit to the aggressiveness of a player who understands somebody, especially their best player, could be or is in foul trouble and just continuing to go at him. I agree. He should have fouled out. I think you watch him try to take a charge. It's pretty clear he's moving. And Brian Windhorst said it best. You called him a cone. Brian Windhorst said he was a hole on the court. The defense has been incredible. The lack of defense, has been incredible. I know Luka is not necessarily a defensive player, and he's obviously carrying this huge load offensively. I think we saw with Anthony Edwards a little bit the series before that when he was playing incredible defense and, just had no energy to do anything on offense. It's a credit to guys who can do it both ways, but the Mavericks can't win big games if they do stupid things. And I don't want to compare this Mavericks team to any Celtics teams in the past, but an inexperienced finals team from the past, this is a characteristic of what that they would do. They'd make stupid mistakes. They take stupid fouls, and it adds up over time.
Yeah, and like, see the thing with Luka, and like I saw a bunch of Mavericks fans who were like, "Well, what do you want Luka to do? Do you want him to be elite on offense and be able to play defense against the other team's best players?" Well, the Celtics have two of those players.
Yep.
Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown have been elite on offense and have been able to defend the other team's best players. So, like, maybe you want guys like Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown on your team that are able to do both. And, you know, that's another testament to the Celtics. And I don't think Luka Doncic, you know, like, I understand, like, you know, he has the big offensive load, but at the same time, I don't really know how you can be the best player in the NBA if you can't, you know, you can't guard a parked car at this point. Like,
Yeah.
and like, I 100% know Luka Doncic is like top 3 player in the NBA, but like to put him, and like people talked about Nikola Jokic's defense, at least he can do something. Like, at least he can stay in front of people on defense, you know, and that's just something Luka is going to have to improve upon if he really wants to take the Mavericks to the next level. And that's pretty much it. And I kind of agree with you that it's kind of his 2022 Celtics moment.
Yeah.
Where, like, you know, you just gotta take it, because pretty much every player has had their first finals loss and they learn from it and become better from it. So I think that's what's going to end up happening.
I mean, we're watching it right now with the Celtics, that's for sure. I think it's also really interesting to look at the structure of this Mavericks team. Like, you got a lot of young talent, obviously, outside of Kyrie Irving, like young talent across the board, where if you are a team that you feel like you can continue to build around Luka Doncic and Kyrie, assuming he stays and is fully healthy, you have this experience from younger players who will grow, much like the 2022 Celtics. It's a tough comparison because I think that Celtics team was probably better than this Mavericks team, but absolutely a very, very logical thing to say that, like, this is his 2022 Celtics moment for sure. As we look ahead to game 4, though, I'm curious to know your keys to the game, because outside looking in, I think most fans will say Kristaps Porzingis, because it's going to be hard to win back-to-back games on the road without that type of talent. But the Celtics have proven last night, series before, they can win big games without Kristaps Porzingis. So what are your big keys for the game Friday night, tomorrow night?
I don't know. There was a report that said Porzingis might be coming back, so that'll be interesting to see if that happens. I'm going to bank on the fact that he won't be playing, just because I don't think I'm not going to say he doesn't need to play, but like, I think the Celtics can still win game 4 without him. Yeah. If you get another performance from Xavier Tillman, like you did coming off the bench, because that was absolutely huge. And I don't think people talk about that enough. Xavier Tillman played like 18 minutes this entire playoff run for the Boston Celtics coming into that game. And he came in the NBA Finals and locked up one of the best offensive players in the NBA, Luka Doncic, on multiple occasions, as well as hitting a corner 3. And he shot 14% from 3 when he was on the Celtics this year, coming over from the trade deadline. So, and now he's shooting 100% in the playoffs. But it's just kind of going to be the same thing in game 3. The Mavericks are going to come out, and the Mavericks came out desperate in game 3 too, but they're going to come out the same way in game 4. They don't want to get swept. Nobody wants to get swept, and they don't want to do it on their home court. So you pretty much have to do the same thing that you did in game 3. Just, you know, keep your foot on the gas, and, you know, like people say, the job's not finished. Even though, like, no team has ever come back from a 3-0 deficit before, it's not finished. And you can't, you know, especially with the Celtics history, you can't take it for granted. So you have to get it done in game 4. And, like, yeah, it would be cool if they went in game 5 and they won it in Boston, but I don't really want that. Like, just finish it off on Friday.
Yeah, don't play with your food, everybody says. I think that the Celtics, especially now, as experienced as they are and understanding where they've been, know that and will act on that. Another really interesting thing I heard from Jayson Tatum's press conference, the perspective the Celtics have now, right? You were down 3-0 last year, and you understood what it took on the other side to come back. And I think Tatum even said, like, he felt like they were a sprained ankle away from potentially going to the NBA Finals, which was the reality. So the Celtics now, at least most of those players, Joe Mazzulla too, have that experience from the other side of, you know, doing what it takes to come back from a 3-0 deficit. So they understand what it takes on the other side. Can they finish in game 4? I hope so. Would be cool if they won it back in Boston, but at the same time, you don't want to mess around. You want to take everything that you have. They've always said live in the moment, whatever it takes, however long it takes to get to where they are to win the championship. That's what it takes. Whatever it takes is what it takes. So I think game 4 too, the benches, it has to be huge. They shot all right from the 3-point line too, but I think those guys like Derek White, Sam Hauser, Peyton Pritchard have to continue to hit open shots. Derek White hit a huge three. I think like 2 minutes left in the game last night. Huge three. Sam Hauser was a huge reason that game didn't get blown out of hand in the second quarter too. Helped that comeback before halftime. Like those guys got to continue to hit shots, and obviously Tatum and Brown will make their shots. I think Brown was 2 of 9 from 3 last night though. Like he didn't shoot the 3 ball well. If the Celtics make threes, like I'm still waiting on that game, especially this series where the Celtics are they're shooting 50% from 3. They've done it plenty of times this year. I'm still waiting on that game. If it comes in game 4, it comes in game 4, but it is eventually going to come. And I think it would be really, really cool if it was in game 4. I know you remember 2008 when they won that game against the Lakers to win it all. They blew them out. I don't know if that'll happen. I hope it happens, but I think game 4, the bench guys, the spot up shooters have to continue to hit their shots. And if they do, you have 2 stars and everybody else to go finish the job. And I think they will.
Definitely. And like you said, like they haven't had that game yet, the finals.
Yeah.
And it's kind of crazy to think, like everyone's been saying all year, well, if the Celtics aren't hitting their threes, they're not going to win games. They shot 32% from 3 heading into game 3 last night. And I can't remember what they shot for as a team, but Tatum, I know Jayson Tatum was 4 of 13 from 3. And like you said, Brown was 2 of 9. So, I mean, hey, this team has been able to find a way to win no matter what. So I think it's going to be absolutely insane. And I was at TD Garden last night for the watch party, and it was absolutely insane. And if they win on Friday, the city is going to go absolutely nuts outside of
I can only imagine. Insane. That is going to be crazy. I will ask you, though, we talked a little bit about this as well. The biggest question, at least for me, if the Celtics win, as it relates to the national media, we've seen all this stuff with Jayson Tatum. We've seen all the stuff with Jaylen Brown. But let's say the Boston Celtics beat the Dallas Mavericks in 4 games. Let's say they sweep them. Which Celtics legacy is affected the most by that sweep?
See, honestly, I feel like you can't really put it on one person. And like I thought about that for a long time, but like even giving Boston sports in general, it's always been a team effort. Like even if you go back to 2008, it was Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, and Ray Allen, and the rest of the guys. You know, every other sport in Boston sports, it's been a team effort as to how they won their championships. Like, look at the MVP in 2018 for the Red Sox, for example. Do you know who the 2018 World Series MVP was?
Gosh, I got to think. That was the team that beat the Dodgers, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember. I'm trying to think of it. Who was it? You tell me.
Steve Pearce.
Steve Pearce. Okay.
Steve Pearce. He was a first baseman that they picked up at the trade deadline, and he had an insane World Series run, and he kind of led the Red Sox to the win. So it's always been a team effort. And like with the Patriots, for example, it's been Tom Brady, but it's been Julian Edelman. It's been Rob Gronkowski. It's been the defense that has been elite for pretty much every Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to go down as like a team legacy. And if you want to go with individual players, I think it's going to cement Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown's legacy as Boston Celtics legends, because I've always said Brown and Tatum are probably the most talented Celtics players that we've seen probably since like Larry Bird, Paul Pierce, Bill Russell. A championship cements themselves in like top 10 talks all time, you know, top 5 talks all time, depending on how many rings they win. So it's obviously going to affect them like Celtics wise. I don't think the national media is going to talk about it too much because A, they don't like Boston, and it's pretty obvious. And B, it was a sweep. Nobody really is going to remember this finals outside of Celtics fans anyway. So I don't really care what the national media has to say, but Celtics legacy-wise, it's going to be important for Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown and pretty much everybody else on the Celtics, because a championship in Boston cements you pretty much forever in the history.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad he didn't split Brown and Tatum up because everybody else is doing that in the media. So I'm glad he
You
didn't do
can't.
that.
They come together. You can't split them up. It doesn't
People have
really
been
matter what you're talking about.
trying since they entered the NBA. It's been pretty crazy to see. But I do want to give a quick shout to two guys. One, I think Joe Mazzulla, like, kind of been ridiculed for the past year and a half. You say, okay, you have all this talent, you better win. Well, guess what? He is winning, and he's one win away from winning an NBA championship. So I think that would pretty clearly cement his legacy as one of the Celtics greats, especially just inheriting the situation he inherited 2 years ago after Ime Udoka was out. Like, you have a good team, yes, but coming in and being a head coach after the head coach who just led you to the NBA Finals leaves, like, that's a crazy, crazy difficult task. And even in that year, he was one win away from the NBA Finals. Now he's back one win away from winning the NBA Finals. That's a
And
crazy
not
thing for
only that,
me.
he's establishing a completely different system.
Yep.
Like Ime Udoka was a defensive-minded head coach, and then in the matter of 1 to 2 years, they completely turned it around into being an offensive-heavy system.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, you just jogged my memory even a little more. So I'm going to give a shout out to two more guys. Brad Stevens, I just want to talk to like that. The roster he's constructed, but like, just think about like where he was too. He had a couple really good teams when Isaiah Thomas was there, led some teams very close to the NBA Finals. Now he shifts roles, has to surrender his role as a coach, and they are where they're at. But the last guy, I just want to talk about Al Horford. Like, that to me is a guy who's been, he's been through. Not going to say he's been through the bad, the good and the bad, because there really wasn't a ton of bad when he was there. But that's a guy that's surrendered a role. That's a guy that's led a lot of really young players, took a lot of really young players under his wing as a Celtics legend too. I mean, I don't know if he'll retire his number, but I will tell you that as a player that Celtics fans will never forget. I think if the Celtics win the finals this year.
Oh yeah, so I also have a fun fact about Al Horford because I was gonna bring this up eventually. If the Celtics win the championship, Al Horford will be the 48th player in NBA history to win an NCAA championship and an NBA championship.
Wow.
The last player to do it was Christian Brown with the Nuggets last year, and the last player to do that before that was Anthony Davis in 2020. Yeah. So
wow. Whew.
He would be the 48th. After winning back-to-back championships in college, he could also have an NBA championship. So, I mean, if the Basketball Hall of Fame, it's Basketball Hall of Fame, it's not just NBA Hall of Fame. So, I think that would be a pretty interesting thing to have.
It'd be a pretty
maybe making it.
Pretty compelling case. As we wrap up the Game 4 talk, Ian, I do want to talk to you very briefly about the Patriots. I know you're a Boston sports fan, primarily a football podcast here, so we got to talk a little bit about the Patriots. I am a fan of what they're building. I think defensively they have a lot of really, really good things going on. I like Drake May. I think they're doing some of the right things offensively. What that offense looks like next year is beyond me with Alex Van Pelt. I mean, I watched the Browns a ton. I watched them last year with Alex Van Pelt. A lot of good things, a lot of things I didn't like as well. But I'm going to ask you, two Patriots you are most looking forward to watching this season. The two Patriots you're most excited to watch this upcoming season.
So I would probably have to go with the two wide receivers they drafted. Polk and, oh my God, I'm completely blanking on his name. I can't remember.
I will tell you, I like Jaylen Polk.
It was the guy that they drafted that said he would get like people in wheelchairs out of their seats.
Yeah, that was
his name.
I can't remember his name. That was Javon Baker.
Javon Baker. I'm so sorry. if he ever sees this podcast, I am so sorry. But I'm very excited for Polk and Baker. I think, and obviously Drake May can be lumped into that as well. But that entire kind of trio, at least with like, obviously, I haven't seen them perform on the field yet, but just the vibes that they've brought and like the fact that Polk and Drake May have, they've been to Bruins games, they've been to Celtics games, they've pretty much already kind of embraced the city so far. I am very excited to see how they develop this year, and I'm hoping that they can, be big contributors to the offense. And like, I don't expect much out of this Patriots team.
Yeah.
Really, I think that, maybe they'll win like 6 games at most, maybe. But I just want to see something different, something exciting. Just like I'm excited with Mayo, I'm excited with May, I'm excited with all the changes. Like, as much as I love Bill Belichick, and I'm never going to take away all the stuff that he did, the last few years were kind of a tough watch, I can't lie. And trying to instill the whole Patriot way thing without having Tom Brady there never really worked. So I'm just excited to see a fresh start, new change. It should be very exciting.
Yeah, I also think another receiver I loved in Minnesota was KJ Osborne. I'm very fascinated to see how they use him too, because I mean, Demario Douglas is really good. You now have 2 really good slot guys that allows you to do a lot of different things. But the other guy, and I mean, I know Patriots fans won't forget about him, but I think the rest of NFL fans do, is Matt Judon. I'm making my top 100 players in the NFL right now. I'm at 84. I've written out the top 80. He's well past that. He will be on the list. Like, he is a really, really good player. And I know it was only like maybe a third of the season before he got injured last year, but he was at the top of Defensive Player of the Year talks last year. Like, he is an elite player. And I think Patriots defense, like, you got to have some type of snake that other teams have to try to cut the head off. And very few better than Matt Judon in the NFL, because he can defend the run too. So that's another guy I love watching, but I'm very much looking forward to in that defense.
Another underrated guy I love is Christian Barmore.
Barmore's very good.
I love watching Christian Barmore. Him and Judon on the line were absolutely insane when they were both playing together.
Yeah.
And Christian Gonzalez as well, because people forget Christian Gonzalez. I mean, he locked up Tyreek Hill week 1, and then he also had to lock up AJ Brown week 2 before he got injured. So
yeah,
I'm very excited to see how Christian Gonzalez is going to play as well. I'm very excited about him.
Yeah, a lot of young talent in New England. But the Boston Celtics are 1 win away from winning the NBA Finals. Ian, thank you again for hopping on. We appreciate you. Why don't you give everybody a little plug on where they can find you on social media?
Definitely. So you can find me at Ian Inangelo on pretty much everything. It's IINANGELO. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, pretty much everywhere. So that's the same username. But I appreciate you for having me on today. This was fun.
Absolutely. You're always welcome back. We'll move to the next segment of the show. Hopefully we see a video on your account after a Game 4 win.
I'm hoping.
We end today's episode with today's temper tantrum. It's where I spend 1 minute to 10 minutes talking about the most passionate take I have in the NFL world right now. And I'm going to limit it to one thing every single episode. There's a lot going on. But for those watching on YouTube, you can see my jersey. It's a San Francisco 49ers minicamp going on, but more importantly, holdouts are going on. We need to talk about something with Brandon Aiyuk that I don't think anybody's talked about. I don't think anybody's mentioned. I've kind of been thinking it, though. Has it ever crossed anybody's mind that the San Francisco 49ers not only don't want to pay Brandon Aiyuk because it's a lot of money, it'll screw their cap situation, Brock Purdy is going to get paid eventually. Not only that, but did it cross anybody else's mind that they may think Deebo Samuel is more valuable than him? Did it cross anybody's mind? I've been somebody who's operated along the lines of Deebo Samuel, Brandon Aiyuk, neck and neck in terms of where they are talent-wise. But before last season, I was so pro Deebo Samuel. I think at his best, Deebo Samuel is one of the 10 best receivers in the NFL. Did it cross anybody's mind that the 49ers think he's more valuable? They want to pay him down the line. They don't want to pay Aiyuk right now. Again, there's a lot of cap reasoning for this. I'm not going to tell you it's just because they think Deebo's more valuable. But did it cross anybody's mind that Deebo Samuel may be more valuable to the San Francisco 49ers? Now, it isn't always going to line up as an X receiver. It isn't always going to go run a 12-yard dig and have Brock Purdy hit you, go beat the guy across from you. He literally plays running back, slot receiver, X receiver, tight end sometimes. Deebo Samuel is one of the most versatile players in the NFL, and it really, really surprises me that more people don't look at the San Francisco 49ers as a team who is very, how do I put this in the nicest and kindest way possible, impossible to game plan for. And the reasoning for that is Christian McCaffrey, obviously, but Deebo Samuel, because he can do so many different things. Now, I look forward to this Brandon Aiyuk situation getting resolved. I'm going to show my little prediction, my taking the talents to in a second for the YouTube people, but I am very much looking forward to this getting over with because I think the 49ers' true colors are going to come out and how they view Brandon Aiyuk. If they can pay Brandon Aiyuk and they feel like they can work out the Purdy deal down the line, they're going to do it. But I don't think that's going to happen. Here's what I think is going to happen. I'm going to put the microphone down. If you're listening on Spotify or any podcast service, stay with me for 20 seconds. I'm going to show the camera on YouTube where I think Brandon Aiyuk is going to wind up. You guys see it. Now, this is a Mike Wallace jersey, but you guys see it. I think he's going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. I think it's almost inevitable that he winds up in Pittsburgh. I think they are looking to keep pace in the AFC. They got a lot of really good things outside of their receiver room, guys. I think Brandon Aiyuk winds up at Pittsburgh Steeler, and I think more people need to respect Deebo Samuel in the process.